Hello, and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly hangout where Masons from around the country get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. Standard disclaimer applies. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. Tonight, as usual, we are soliciting comments and questions from you live via Twitter at Mason Roundtable and or with the hashtag TMR episode 13. We'll begin with introductions tonight. My name is John Ruark from the Patriot Lodge number 1957. I have a cat, and my current office is Lodge Education Officer and Chaplain. Moving off to Jason Richards.
Thanks, John. Good night, everybody. My name is Jason Richards. I'm the Senior Deacon of Acacia Lodge number 16 in Clifton, Virginia, and I have two cats, and I love them both very dearly.
Okay, Nick.
Oh, hey, it's Nick Johnson. I write on the blog millennialfreemason.com, past Master Corinthian Lodge number 67, and I also have some cats. Moving on.
Great. Robert.
Brother Robert Johnson from Waukegan Lodge number 78, the senior warden there, and a host of the podcast WCY, or Whence Came You? And I really hate cats.
Even.
Juan.
And I am Brother Juan Sepulveda from Eola Lodge number 207 in Orlando, Florida. And I have a cat whose name is Monkey, and that has proven to be very confusing while teaching children what animals are called.
Great. All right. So this is Tesla, and he loves to be on the camera, so I will toss him now. There you go. All right. Any Masonic news tonight? Well, last week we talked about our podcast finally being available. We had a lot of requests to get the podcast up and running. We've had really good feedback and downloads, so if you like it, continue to share and download. We have a new announcement as well. We have a new website up that will be easier to search and have some original content on as well. And you can find that right below. You can see my name tag here at www.themasonic.roundtable.com. Should be easy to remember, and we'll update all the shows embedded as we go, both audio and video. So it's easy to go back and find easier the old episodes and the like. So there you go. Let us know if you like it.
We'll try to put up some exclusive content too, like show notes and some explanations and extra talk about the show.
Okay, try that again. I think you were breaking up a little bit.
Oh, okay. We're going to try to post some exclusive content on the website as well, some explanations and extrapolations of what we talk about on the show, as well as some show notes for everybody following along.
Great. Now on to the topic tonight, Masonic mentoring. Now, mentoring is a very important topic for Masons as we come through, because if we're all about education and learning, we need to be mentored by those senior people that have come before us. So before we begin, let's talk about what is mentoring. Kind of the textbook definition says mentoring is really advising or training someone on a certain skill or organization, especially a younger colleague. So how that applies to Masonry is, as people come in, younger Masons, we need to advise them and train them not only on the ritual, but as well as the mechanics, the order of things, the way that protocol is in Lodge, and who's the big dog, who reports to who, and anything else. So really we'll start off with who really makes the best mentor. Anyone want to chime in on that?
It's hard to say these days. You've got so many amazing Elder Lodge members, past masters and things. I think the best mentor is the person who's excited about new people coming in and showing them the ropes. But there's a couple different types of mentors, and I guess we'll get into that later. But I think the best kind of the mentor is the guy who is maybe older or seasoned, but who is also not the guy who continually shuts down the new ideas. He's the guy who is excited about new people coming in and new opportunities. Like maybe somebody shut down the idea of the Facebook page for your lodge. Well, the guy usually who is an amazing mentor is the guy who's like, yeah, let's do a Facebook page. That sounds cool.
Yeah, the way I read mentorship is Masonically to impart light to someone, because that's what we're all about in Masonry: the search for more light, the search for truth, the search for knowledge. And if you go by the Masonic definition or connotation of mentorship as being someone who imparts light to others, you really can have all sorts of mentors. Everybody from the youngest entered apprentice can be a mentor and come about things a little bit differently as far as perspective goes and teach something to someone else. So really the person who makes a fabulous mentor is the person who has the passion, the excitement, and the tolerance, acceptance, and drive to do something about it. To be an age thing or a seasoning thing, you can have someone brand new who's just learned, about the EA degree, and they have some fantastic ideas of, how to apply that to their lives that no one else has really thought about.
Agreed.
Juan, Nick, you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I like the idea of looking at a mentor different than the instructor. Especially in my jurisdiction, we try to emphasize that a lot, that a new Mason should have both a mentor and an instructor, because the instructor can focus on teaching memory work, floor work, degree work, all the technical things about how to do things, how to say things, and that's the one focus. And then he is not restricted from delving into the esoteric or the allegorical teachings, but then there is the mentor whose focus is to try to help you put the two together, all the things that you've learned how to say and how to do, and what do they actually mean. We know that many times there are very little details, whether the little columns that they have in the south and the west, what does that mean? Well, the instructor tells you when do they move, if at all, and then the mentor tells you, well, this is what it represents. So I like that, that way there's two different focuses in your instruction.
Really good point. Super good. I feel that I've never heard of the separation like that, like you had described, but it would be so amazing to have that separation. I think, especially in any lodge, really, you've got the guy you're going to ask for in mentoring, you're going to ask him a question, and all he's going to do is quote your ritual book,
Mm-hmm.
And then you get left out in the cold. So, I mean, so to speak, maybe.
And you want to give them an opportunity also, just because a person has spent a lot of time in the fraternity or in a lodge, it doesn't mean that the information is fresh in their minds, especially when sometimes people are quoting things that they're not accurate. They're just saying, oh, this is what it means. Well, maybe not.
Right.
But if you're actually purposefully looking for the significance of one thing or another, and then you have this fresh candidate that's like a sponge taking everything in, you give them the right information right from the get-go, then you do everybody a service.
And I think the obligations of the mentor and the instructor are different as well, because on one hand, the instructor is usually assigned to you or to a candidate by the worshipful master, but it is the obligation of every single member of that lodge as a brother in that lodge to mentor and impart more light to the candidate whenever the candidate asks and even when they don't. It's just part of who we are as good brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the last thing you want to do, and nothing against my dad, but when I was a kid, I always relate the story. I would ask my dad. I must have asked him 100 times. I was 6 years old, I think, and I asked my dad, "Why do strawberries have the seeds on the outside?" And he would take a sip of his beer, and he'd look at me and go, "That's a good question, son." And then he'd turn and start talking to my grandpa again. And I must have done that 5 or 6 times. He just never answered my question because it was the technicality of it or whatever else. But you end up getting that. If you ask somebody who is the guy who is, nothing but the guy who just quotes the book all day, he's not going to know the meaning of, circumambulation or, any number of other things. So
Hmm.
the distinction is definitely, that excites me that you guys do that. The separation, that's really cool.
So, who is the best target to receive mentorship? We talked about it should primarily be at least a seasoned person, young or older, and different, right? But should we focus on a specific group like the entered apprentices right from the beginning, even the profanes right from the beginning, or should we focus on newly raised Master Masons, or anywhere in between? What do you guys think?
That's a good question.
Go ahead.
No, that's a very good question. I never even considered that. Although I had that desire to be mentored even when I was a profane. I wanted information, and I was virtually mentored by people. So, I think there's a need for it. Of course, you couldn't go too deep into some of the teachings in the order, but at a certain degree of information can be shared.
Well,
What do you guys think?
in Minnesota, we actually have a mentorship program, and it literally starts pre-petition phase. You're essentially expected to assign a mentor to a guy, at the point in which he is expressing interest. And so it's kind of carries on from that point on all the way down until he's finally a Master Mason, and then even beyond. And so, I mean, it's a pretty inclusive program, and I found it when I was Master. We initiated into that past Master guy. When I was Master in my year, I honestly, it's pretty much one of the best programs the Grand Lodge of Minnesota has ever put forward, and it is. It's soup to nuts. You know, pre-petition guy. This is what you can talk to him, get him feeling comfortable with the lodge, until all the way finally 3, 6, 12 months after his raising, discuss with him, find out what his concerns are, what his questions are still at that point, what he's enjoying, what he would enjoy more, and that's the thing is mentorship is really getting somebody setting the boat so that it's going all the way down the river, instead of just, well, here you go, kid, here's a couple of paddles, now have fun, I mean, it's really helping them steer.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that a lot because you're really focusing end to end, as you kind of alluded to. I think that's a fantastic idea because one, it shows consistency, right? Because it's, as you said, it's a assigned person way in the beginning of the process, and two, it carries on all the way throughout, and so it's kind of established at that point, and that's a really cool concept.
Well, when you think about it, what has to happen when a brother or a profane petitions a lodge? They have to get 2 signers, and those signers are brethren in good standing who know this person and vouch for this person. So right then and there, that's where that mentorship has the ability to bloom, in the first instance, just because these are presumably brethren who have known this person for a long time. At least a number of months, if not years, and the impetus is on those original brethren to start the mentorship process. Of course, we know it doesn't always happen like that, and sometimes we have to get them to the lodge and then start the mentoring ship from outside of the signers.
That's a good point too, because Virginia Grand Lodge has a mentor's manual or a little cheat sheet, and they say the first 2 mentors absolutely have to be their signers, and that can be a challenge. But really, it opens up to what's the number of mentors someone should have, and I kind of let the cat out of the bag. My answer should be unlimited.
Yeah.
You're going to get light from lots of people and get different perspectives because Nick Johnson was a master in his year, doesn't mean it was the right way. It was his way, but it wasn't the right way. And so,
we all wept for Minnesota Masonry that year.
Oh, it was a sad year. It really was.
Honestly, they put that in the annual report. They said today is a terrible day for Minnesota.
Today is a day that will live in infamy.
But
but
I think you're totally right. I think you're totally right because and I'm going to steal from a title of a book, but it takes a lodge to raise a Mason. I think that's true. Wow, that totally sounded that was awesomer in my head. But no, I think it's true though. I mean, honestly, it takes more than just one mentor or 2 or 10. I mean, really, every person I meet in Masonry teaches me something. I think that's what a mentor is a teacher.
Going back to the original question too about who would be ideal to receive, to be mentored, and it needs to be a receptive person. It has to be someone who is willing to listen, and in the ritual there are some allusions to that whole process of listening and teaching and all of that. But I try to remind myself, it doesn't matter how many books I read, it doesn't matter how much research I do. I'm still really, really young in the fraternity, and I have a lot to learn. And if I come in thinking I know a lot because I read a thick book or two, I might be cheating myself out of the rest of the light that's available to me. So.
Right. Well, it's why they say it's like to every Mason, it is something different. So you might get the full gamut of explanations on every little thing, but it's ultimately what it means to that or to you. Mm-hmm. And I would have to agree with John. However, John, with the fact that there should be no limit to the amount of mentors a guy can have. But there was a paper that I read on the podcast last week or the week before, and it talked about. It was a Grand Lodge edict in Canada, I think, and back in the 80s, they were going to require anybody who was going to be a mentor or a teacher to have to be certified, which was an interesting question because what are you taking away? What are you taking away? Like if, Nick probably knows more about the ins and outs and the technicalities than anybody I know in Masonry. But if he doesn't take some stupid test, you know what I mean?
Which I feel like I'd probably fail anyway, so.
Oh, no. Yeah, I don't like that idea of having a specific certification. I mean, I understand you want to have some bases covered, but some of the light that I've had to get from different sources, I don't think you could get that in one place or through one level of certification, and I think that would actually weed people out because you'll get different parts of the fraternity from different people as well. I mean, we've kind of talked a little bit in previous episodes about education versus ritual versus floor work versus mechanics versus leadership. And everyone's going to have their own opinion, and everyone's going to be stronger in one of those elements than another. And
Right.
So to kind of have a certification program that just sets the bar, you'd have to set the bar really low, which then what's the point? Or you're going to set it too high, and you're going to weed out people that have valuable contributions that they're just going to miss out.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that would just lead to alienation and hurt feelings, and that's not something we need in the lodge. We already have enough of that.
Yeah.
Well, and I would consider all of you a mentor of, mentoring me. I mean, you guys have taught me a lot of different things about Masonry, and I think that's just it, is, I think we have to, instead of trying to define it as this specific person that walks in and says, "I am here, I am teacher, listen to me." You know, I mean, it's more like, somebody comes in and says, "Hey, I can help you out. I
Yeah.
know this piece. I will give it to you. Do you have any pieces? Would you like to give them to me?"
Yeah.
I think that's just it. Is, for certain things, one person's better than the other, than one, or knows more or whatever, and it's just helpful that way.
Hmm.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah, so let's talk about reverse mentorship for a minute. I've taken a lot of leadership classes, and I really like the concept of being a good servant leader and taking leadership uh, positions in the lodge. And really, the thing that I find most interesting is you can lead wherever you are. The newest Master Mason, even the newest, entered apprentice, has leadership qualities they can impart back to the lodge. Um, I'm finding, just from my observation, you're finding young guys joining the fraternity right now that probably know more than some of the seasoned veterans. In fact, I know some of our leadership development um, courses offered by our Grand Lodge, they explicitly said that just that you will have candidates coming in that will know more about the ritual than you will. And due to the nature of the internet, due to the nature of this e-masonry movement, right, that a lot of good questions I've seen on Reddit that you may have, as a new guys, so much knowledge that you can impart back to the lodge. And just from the breadth of things like this, that you're going to hear things, what's going on in different jurisdictions. There are many seniors, a lot of graybeards that are in leadership positions now in the lodge that haven't even traveled outside the state. And so you're bringing in, hey, did you know that in this other jurisdiction they wear their apron like this, or they do this differently? Wow, I didn't know that. And so my advice to a lot of the profanes, people that have not joined the fraternity yet, or that are new in the fraternity, whether they be entered apprentice, fellow craft, or brand new Master Masons, if you know something, speak up, because don't be afraid to be right. That you may know a lot more than the rest of the lodge does.
Well, the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to go, "Did you know this?" And they're going to go, "Yeah." And what's really cool about that is,
You're annoying.
Yeah,
Get out.
get this guy out of here.
No, bad.
Blackballed.
My year we didn't have know-it-alls.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We have our own know-it-all, Nick Johnson.
Yeah.
Facepalm.
Because he has a direct cable that goes from the Freemasonry Reddit thing, like it goes right into the back of his neck.
It's a chip implanted.
Yeah.
Awesome.
He's wireless.
You can call me Neo. Which it's like if you spell it a different way, it says one. What?
Oh.
The one? Neo is the one? What?
Thou shalt not use my.
And then the one is actually
Juan Sepulveda.
There's only one here. I'm the only one.
So, mentorship. Yeah, that's what we were talking about, weren't
Yeah,
we?
that's right. Another thing about mentorship. I like the idea of having different formats of it. You could have one-on-one mentorship where you just really have uninterrupted conversations with a brother, and then there's another format in which you have a group. Perhaps if you had a new class of entered apprentices coming through, then you get together with them. And I mentioned this specifically because when I was initiated along with some other gentleman who, although he came for the intention of increasing his virtues, he knew nothing of prudence. And it was pulling teeth, getting any kind of time that was of good quality time. Luckily, I'm kind of a type A personality, so I was able to steer things in the right direction. But if it was anybody more passive or a little bit quieter than me, they might not even be a Mason today. So it's one thing to keep in mind.
To balancing your passions,
Mm-hmm.
because you can have the drive and the desire to just help everybody out, in every single way possible, and if they're not receptive to it, or you don't actually pave the way for reverse mentorship and actually listen to what they have to say, to what you have to say, then again it's something that's going to be more of a hindrance than it is a help.
Yeah.
Well, and you're right. At C67, what we did that we tried out, I can't remember what year it was, but what we did is we actually would match up a new petitioner with a guy who had similar qualities. So you had like new guy who's a Marine. Well, his mentor is another Marine, right? This guy is, kind of white collar. This guy's white collar. And it worked pretty well. I mean, it created at least an initial bond because it was like an affinity lodge within the lodge. And so it was a bunch of guys that shared a trait. And it worked for a little bit, but we just kind of found that it was more complicated trying to, well, this guy is similar to this guy. Well, but is he really similar to this? I don't know. And is this guy better because of this quality? And it just got really complicated. And at the end of the day, we just found that the easiest way to do it was just to say, "Hey, you want to try being a mentor?" And the guy would say, I don't have much to do on Saturday, sure, and I think that's volunteering, getting guys to buy in, but it worked okay.
Yeah, and I think what you said too is a key word: volunteering. Don't be afraid to be a mentor. You don't have to know everything about everything that is to know about Masonry. You'd probably be surprised of how much knowledge you can impart unto just even a brother that came right behind you. So that's just another little piece of advice, is to just do it, and you'll learn along the way. You'll learn from them. You'll give some knowledge back.
Yeah, there's so much in Freemasonry anyway that you can't know it all anyway. I mean, literally, there's lifetimes you could spend studying it and not know it.
Unless you're Nick Johnson.
Unless you're Nick Johnson. But so if you go out there and that's your big fear is, well, I don't know enough to mentor. Well, yeah, you do. I mean, how much of being a better man anyway? I mean, that's part of the work, is making good men better. Sharing life stories. It has nothing to do with Masonry in general, but I mean, that's mentoring too.
And you can prepare if you know what the mentee is needs at the moment. Because that's another thing. That the mentor gets an opportunity to get to know the new brother, or whomever the person is, gets to know them better and knows what areas of Masonry can benefit them. And they can turn around and find information in Masonry to help them in their respective lives. So it's like a custom way of helping that individual.
And mentoring doesn't have to be all positive. It'd be a pretty boring organization if you had nothing but great things to say about the way that it's going. But if you have a mentoring relationship with someone who's a little bit less experienced, I think it's perfectly okay to say, what, these are the things that are fantastic about the fraternity, and there are a ton of them. But at the same time, there are these areas which I think we need to do a whole lot better because they're driving me crazy. Because, giving the person the full picture is going to benefit them so much more than censoring what you do and don't talk about. Of course, within the parameters of secrecy, etc.
Right. Hey, Jason, we're getting a little short on time. Do you want to check the Twitter wall and see if we got any messages? I think we do.
Yes. Keep talking, and I'll have
Okay.
it up in a minute.
We keep seeming to lose Nick Johnson, too, so I'll re-invite him as well. But, Nick hit a good point that the light bulb kind of went off for me as we were starting the show, which is we're all kind of mentors right now. One, we're learning from each other. Two, we're sharing light knowledge out to other people. And three, we're getting good feedback from people, private messages and messages on our wall that we're learning a lot about your jurisdiction, about your challenges, what works, what doesn't. And so just this whole conversation has really been a huge learning experience for me personally. I don't know if I can speak for the other guys, but
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah, we actually we do have a question from Brother Ryan Flynn, who, by the way, is a fantastic artist. So you need
Yes,
to check
indeed.
out his stuff. Ryan Flynn on Facebook. His question is: should we solely use the recitation of a lesson in lodge as proof has been properly mentored? I think what he's talking about here is proficiency.
Hmm.
Um, should that be the only measuring stick for whether or not a candidate has received enough mentorship in one degree to enable him to receive the next? What do you guys
No.
think about that?
I am so glad he asked that question. And uh, I am a firm believer that, like the people that came before us, we have to put as much care into learning the proficiency as they did, right? And I am a stickler. Let's follow the words as they should be. Let's say things the way they should. Let's learn them. Make an effort into memorizing everything as possible, as best as possible. If you get nervous when you're delivering them in front of the craft, that's perfectly fine. I've heard proficiencies before the lodge opens that were absolutely perfect, and when they stand up before the other brethren, they just tremble in fright. And that's completely understandable. I don't think it's acceptable for people not to put the care necessary or the time to try to learn those things. And that's part of instruction. Now, if we use that only as the measuring stick for their progress in Masonry, then we're doing a disservice to the fraternity. When they memorize things the way that they should, then they have an opportunity to come back and analyze what they memorized, and that's where mentoring comes in, and try to learn what are the lessons that are in those words. How can I apply those to my life, and then get the full picture. But it shouldn't be the sole measuring of a man's progress, because not everybody is a good test taker. Not everybody is able to stand in front of a crowd and speak nicely. So that's a
man,
great question.
man, Juan, you knocked it out of the park on that one.
Sorry.
That's a great response. I don't know if there's anything else we could say. Want to also highlight that Johnny Ryan McDonald also wanted to give a shout out to Jason Richards for being a great mentor for him. And so
That's nice.
I know Jason was too humble to post that, so I wanted to publicly humiliate him and let him know that Jason Richards is an awesome mentor. He mentors me a lot. So
Johnny Ryan McDonald, by the way, is the guy who wrote the Masonic Roundtable music for the audio-only podcast with me, and
Nice.
recorded the guitar on it. So he's a fantastic brother and a great musician. But I might take a little bit of a contrary viewpoint to Juan, who just knocked things out of the park, and say that no, you can't gavel me down. We're not in the tile lodge. I don't see a problem with using proficiency as the litmus test for saying that a brother is ready to receive the next degree. However, I think that there's a problem with doing that in the sense that if you're just going by instruction and no mentoring, you're going to get a brother who gets his Master Mason degree and you'll never see him again.
Well,
So, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I wanted to mirror almost the exact same. My feelings are similar. That if you're just giving somebody like, hey, memorize this. Number one, first inherent problem is it's old school language, right? So number one, do they even understand what they're saying, or are they just memorizing it? I've watched. I'll throw a movie out there, Big Trouble in Little China, about 100,000
Nice.
times, right? Great
Me
movie.
too. Love it.
I can blow through every line of that movie right now. But all that means is that I've practiced it, I've heard it enough, yada yada yada. Doesn't necessarily, in terms of Masonic significance, if that's your litmus test, as you pointed out, if that's all you know, I mean, what else is there? To me, if somebody can memorize that, all it really means is that they cared enough and they want to be a Master Mason bad enough that they put in the time to learn it, and then when they become Master Mason, maybe they want to put in more time and learn other esoteric values or other things in the lodge. So yeah, I don't think that if you return a proficiency is the end all. I mean, really?
Right.
Agreed.
I think literally
Now,
just a stepping stone.
So
very
you're saying
quick.
oh,
I'm sorry, Nick. Go ahead.
oh, no problem. Go ahead.
Oh, that I recently witnessed a very, very, very poor proficiency uh, display, and it was accepted as proficient. And I wasn't necessarily very pleased with the fact that it was accepted as proficient, because to me the word proficient means that people really know it. And, yeah, I shouldn't say anymore.
Well, okay, so like in Illinois, we have, as you guys mentioned, Nick said that he has that program that starts at the beginning before a guy gets petitioned, and we have that. It's called the Intender Program, and that book is called On the Threshold. In addition to all the information that's in there, if they actually petition the lodge, the next thing they get is their catechism that they have to learn. And in the Intender Program, they get that. It's in the book that they have to learn, but also in that book is like 30 questions that have nothing to do with the actual degree, but little things that have to do with Freemasonry that, as a mentor, you're supposed to teach them. And I forgot to mention that, and I wanted to.
Cool. All right.
Nice.
Well, let's start wrapping up. Nick, I'll let you start since you had a final thought there, and
Sure.
you can kind of say your piece and wrap up and do your shameless plug.
Sure. Well, and kind of to add on to Robert's point, I think, just having an oral proficiency is just not enough. You need both. You need to make sure that they not only can parrot information, which is essentially what an oral proficiency test is. I mean, essentially nobody has to actually know what they're saying. They just have to say it. And so making them actually have to write down their thoughts makes perfect sense. But getting into kind of my final thought, I think mentorship needs to be viewed in concentric circles, where you've got one-on-one, and then you have a small group, and then the large group, and then kind of the Masonic world, which is e-masonry, things like that. But you need to have somebody there, a point man, that brother can feel comfortable enough with being able to call, ask his questions, feel that his questions are answered sufficiently. With that, my blog is millennialfreemason.com. It's a wonderful place that will be getting updated soon, sometime. It's a great place. I feel terrible because I've been grabbing all my old posts and throwing them onto the Reddit the subreddit for Freemasonry, which is reddit.com/r/Freemasonry. And so I've been very naughty, and I've been grabbing old articles that I wrote many years ago and throwing them back on there as if they're new. And all these guys are talking about them, and it makes me feel good, and it gives them an opportunity to talk. So you know what? I'm gonna stop feeling bad about that. I feel
Nice.
good about myself. All right, moving on.
Okay, Juan.
Well, I really enjoyed tonight's conversation. I think mentoring is very important to give and to receive in Masonry. There's a lot of opportunities, and if you see one, take advantage of it. I invite you to check out thewindingstairs.com. I just recently published an interview with a brother who's also an artist, and I really enjoyed my conversation. I invite you to check it out, thewindingstairs.com, and freemasonryart.com, where you can see my art.
Great. Okay, Robert.
If you guys like what you hear, keep watching this show. I'll be updating the audio podcasts on iTunes. I do 1 or 2 every night until we hit our megabyte limit for the month. But I wasn't with you guys last week. I apologize for that. I was actually preparing for another Masonic function at an AMD council. But I did want to quickly just tell everybody that you guys gave me a lot of props on the audio work and everything for that. But a lot of that wouldn't have been possible without Juan also Juan
Thank
gave
you.
me a lot of information about quality audio and that kind of thing before. So thanks, Juan, for that. I wanted to let everybody know that you're part of that.
You're
And
welcome.
thanks to my wife, we just celebrated 12-year anniversary, so I'm gonna get some maybe saying that on the. She got me a wonderful gift, a custom-made top hat. Hopefully, I'll be able to use that someday. And if you guys like it all, check out wcypodcast.com, which is my podcast, Whence Came You? It's published every week, Sunday nights at 9:30. And keep coming back for the Masonic Roundtable. Thanks, guys. I'll pass it off to Jason.
Jason.
All right. Thanks, Robert. Just a couple quick thoughts. First and foremost, I had the opportunity to be mentored over this past weekend by a brother who I'd never even met before. His name is Cash Earhart, and he's out of Williamsburg Lodge number 6 in Williamsburg. My wife and I were vacationing down there, and I got in touch with Brother Cash through their Facebook page and said, hey, you know what, I'm in the area. Williamsburg Lodge is quite a historic lodge. And will there be anybody there when I'm there this weekend? And he actually made a special trip over, opened up the lodge for me,
Nice.
and spent a good 30 to 45 minutes going through all the details in the architecture, in the designs, pointing out these little historical artifacts, and it was just phenomenal. So my wife and in-laws had a fantastic time with them as well. Just the amount of knowledge and the historical knowledge that he imparted to us was fantastic. So just have to thank him very much for that opportunity to mentor a brother he had never met before.
That's really cool.
So it was really neat. And then just to lend a little bit of context to my earlier remarks regarding the catechism as a litmus test, I think it's good as a litmus test because it's standardized. As long as we're operating under the assumption that the brethren know the candidate to know whether or not he's been mentored to the full extent. Because I think we'll run into problems if we get people going, well, I don't know him very well enough. I don't know him very well, so I don't know if he's ready because I can't tell if he's been mentored enough. And so as a litmus test, I think the catechism proficiency is a good standard as long as we all do our part as brethren and as good men. Because the fact of the matter is, you can't make good men better without mentorship. So
Very
I
well
don't
said.
care who you are, take the time to reach out to somebody, mentor them, allow the opportunity for them to mentor you, and I think you'll find that you're both better men and better Masons for it. That's all from me. Go ahead and check out my blog, 2-Foot Ruler, Masonry in Plain Language, www.twofootruler.wordpress.com, and I'll see you all back here next week. Back to
Okay.
you, John.
Thanks. As for me, wanted to show off the website real quick. This is live at www.theMasonicRoundtable.com. Pretty easy to remember. And you'll see some information about our Facebook page on the left, our Twitter feed on the right, a couple blog posts we'll have, and also we have some neat bios that we put up on the About Us tab, so make sure you get a chance to read those. And you can also donate to the show on the Donate tab via PayPal or Bitcoin. We do accept Bitcoin. We're one of those internet guys. So check that out. Thank you very much for supporting the podcast as well. We know you asked for it, and so it's definitely, hopefully, a valuable service for you, and let us know if you'd like to see more. We'll put more show notes on the website as they evolve. I know I'm going to add some of the Grand Lodge mentorship pamphlets and stuff on this show notes, so check out the website for that. Final thoughts on mentorship. As I said earlier, this roundtable, we're mentors to each other. We're mentors to you guys. You guys are mentors to us. I firmly believe that leadership starts where you are. You don't have to be in a certain position. You don't have to hold an office in your lodge. You are a mentor based on your background, your experience, and your knowledge. And another thing that really needs to be said is if you're not finding what you need out of Masonry and out of your lodge, go find a mentor. Don't wait for a mentor to come to you. And also, if it's not in your lodge, go find a mentor somewhere else, whether that's from another lodge in your district, from another lodge in your jurisdiction, from friends on the internet that that I know some people may be getting frustrated with. They need to see more esotericism. They're not seeing that in their lodge. Go find it. Don't wait for it to come to you, because the last thing I want to see is someone leave because they were frustrated they weren't getting the wisdom and the knowledge that they were looking for. So with that, support your Masonic charities. Thank you very much for the links and likes, comments, and private messages. I don't have a blog, but you can feel free to friend me on all the social media. Thank you very much for joining us, and keep searching for more light.